coming to the panel room.
Hello. Hello.
Two things. Yeah, you guys are backwards.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't want it to be Eryn for the day.
Well, I want to be Tami.
It's like your own version of Face Off. And it works because you're a monster maker, so you guys could totally do it.
Yeah, we totally could. Who
So-
are you, though?
I'm Jimmy.
Okay.
But
No, I
guess
mean,
I
like,
would-
if we're on a panel,
Oh,
a face-off panel,
would
judging.
we just like rotate down?
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, if we're like Glenn and I
Yeah.
guess that would be,
Are you Neville?
yeah, probably.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you guys having fun?
Oh my
Sinister
gosh,
Creature
we're having
Con?
the best
A lot of
time. It's so
people?
fun.
It's good.
So your guys' monsters, creatures, just makeup designs in general, they look like they're so much fun to make. Like, they're definitely like not your run-of-the-mill average day 9 to 5 work when you're creating characters like the ones that you guys create. I want to know, like, when did you decide, when you guys, were growing up, was it like ever since you were a kid thing, or did your talent kind of come along and then you were like, no, this is something that I really want to get into? When did you decide this is what you want to do?
Well, as a kid, I always drew. My favorite book to take out of the grade school library was How to Draw Monsters.
Uh-huh.
So it was Dracula, Frankenstein, but I was so young. My parents were pretty strict with me about movies I saw because they wouldn't even let me go see Ghostbusters when it came out. They thought it would scare me. But I saw Poltergeist without them knowing, and that did scare me.
Yeah. Because that's terrifying.
It is terrifying. Yeah, right? Well, they didn't know, you see. Yeah. But I always liked monsters, and Halloween was always my favorite. My favorite holiday, and I wasn't even into the candy. It was all about, I was just telling Eryn a story that I remember when I was 4, I couldn't decide between two things I wanted to be, which I couldn't decide to be Superman because my mom made me my own Superman costume, or Darth Vader, so I was Super Darth Vader.
Right on.
It was an amalgamation of both. I gotta find that picture.
I know you do.
I know. But
That's good. I
yeah,
like it.
Yeah.
How did you make him? Because now that's like a thing. People always mash up and cosplay and stuff. So what was your Super Vader? What did you do?
It was basically the Superman. Now I was 4, so
Okay.
it was the Superman costume that my mom made me with a black cape and a black Vader mask.
Okay. Right on.
It was those older ones.
Yeah,
with
it was
the
Velcro.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
The
yeah.
elastic,
The elastic.
yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
But it was shiny and I liked it.
That's so cool.
What about for you? When did it come
I
that you
think
knew?
a lot of it is, I think a lot of people that do what we do have similar stories, in that there was something that happened that you saw when you were like 7 or 8, or I was really into monsters then because there was always the Saturday creature feature stuff going on, and that was like the day my mom would go do stuff and my dad was doing something else, so we'd always watch like Hammer films, all these really gory films, and we were really into them. So my brother was really into horror too. Yeah, like whatever was on, we'd watch it. So I always was interested in it, and then luckily, I feel I was a creature of the 80s, of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just there were so many cool films. I was like 14 in the early 80s, like 81, 82, when all the big cool films were out. So it really kind of sparked my imagination, and I really wanted to do that. Of course, like with most people, we didn't know how to do that job, like how to get that kind of a job, or we
Right.
didn't even know that it was a job.
Right.
And so then it just kind of circumstantial. I ended up getting to go to a small seminar school for 4 weeks when I was in college, but I just had always loved it, and that was when Thriller came out, American Werewolf in London, The Thing, I was just obsessed with it, and it just kind of all would always just come back to monsters, and I always loved him.
What is it about practical effects that you guys love so much? Because there's no doubt, I've always kind of attributed to the humanity that goes into you guys creating them. Like, you say American Werewolf in London. That werewolf is immensely cooler than something CGI like Twilight. because you know, Rick Baker made that sculpt for that transformation scene, and then they fabricated those wolves. Twisty, in your case, like, he's so much cooler because in those scenes, like, that is practical effects makeup. Motion capture is really, really cool, but he's scarier because that is really his face. And same goes for like Lord of the Rings or Narnia, when you're making these practical creatures. So I'm curious, is that kind of like how you guys think too, as you're doing it, like you're bringing it to life, thus bringing it humanity into the project? Or what is it that makes you guys appreciate practical effects so much?
Well, I always try, like, I work with a huge team of people, and we always want to do it practically. And the CG stuff, we welcome when it's in hand with the practical. So we always start with the practical. Like Twisty is a makeup, but there's also some enhancements that make it better, and and it's not a total replacement, because what Eryn and I have been asked for the last 10 years or more actually is about CG taking our jobs. Well, not everybody can afford CG or afford good CG, and I feel the fans get turned off by
too much.
Those types of creatures in films. Are like, oh yeah, it's just a cartoon. But always want something tangible to shoot and in your hands. And
also having actors relate against something, I think, has a lot to do with it too, of when you have an actual makeup in front of you that people can be scared of, or that they can that someone is emoting through. It makes a big difference. I mean, just recently seeing Solo, everything was all practical creatures, and it made such a difference. Like, it was really like,
difference.
That's so rad. Like, it was really, there's such a different feel to it.
It's like back to the original.
It had such a, I don't know, I just really appreciated all the attention that they did to bringing that back. I think people are tired of seeing a lot of, unrelatable CGI creations, and that's not to say that there aren't great ones. I mean, look at War of the Planet of the Apes is so incredible. But, like with Twisty, that was also based on underneath his mask was also based on an actual sculpt that Dave Anderson did.
Oh, wow.
So that was photographed, and then that was animated. So that's an actual something practical.
It exists.
That's a real thing that exists that they animated. And we shot John Carroll Lynch with a green screen makeup, and then we also did it with motion capture dots, so that was shot like 3 different times.
Oh, wow.
Also with his regular mouth. And I think that having somebody that cares as much about what's on camera has a lot to do with it. My boss, Ryan Murphy, is very much into wanting it as much practical as possible. And then Jason Piccioni, whose company Fuse Effects does all of the visual effects for him. And he always says it starts with the practical makeup. It always starts with practical makeup. We can always add more blood, or we can take something out, or even with like de-aging on we do a lot of flashback stuff on American Horror Story, where I do a lot with pulls and with makeup and lighting, but there might be something that needs to be taken out with wrinkles. And so you just kind of, we work together. We have a very good relationship, and I feel very fortunate that way because of it. So it's, I think there's a lot to be said, obviously, for CGI, but things swing back again. They come back to practical because people really like to see it.
Yeah, especially in horror. Like, horror is big into practical effects. When you get something that is, I think when you get something that could be practical, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. Like, if it could be practical, like, it should be practical, type of a thing. Solo. Star Wars is fun again. A lot of that is because of the practical monsters. Like,
I agree.
Yeah. You mentioned your boss, Ryan Murphy, in American Horror Story, just continues to pump out memorable character after memorable character after memorable character, to the point now where it's at Halloween Horror Nights every year.
I know. That was a dream come true. It was so much fun to have that.
You guys, with that smile, I'm assuming you guys got to go, and did you go through it?
Yeah. And I got to be part of it. I got to approve all the sculptures.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Send paint samples, and anything that Orlando or Hollywood wanted from us. We sent them pictures, because a lot of times, even though they were sent pictures that were taken on set, I said, oh, here's us doing the makeup, this is what it looks like. And obviously a lot of the stuff for the mazes have to be over the top, because you
Right.
want an immediate scare as opposed to something that's a little more subtle. We still got to see all of those sculpts before they went into the molding process, and got to approve it all, which was super fun. It was very, very fun for somebody nerdy like me. I enjoyed it immensely.
Do any of you guys know Halloween Horror Nights down south? Yeah.
She does.
Yeah, I can't recommend. I've gone. I mean, we were several years. We were super stoked when they took you guys on, and no offense to The Walking Dead, but they'd done Walking Dead like 7 years in a row.
Well, plus
And they
also
brought-
it also that was also a permanent attraction at the time
Yeah.
when we did it.
Yeah, right. So
So-
they did that, and then they brought you guys in.
Yeah, and that was so fun. The first year we did the three seasons, and then the second year we did the
Roma.
one season in Los Angeles, and then Orlando did 3 seasons. And they're so different on each
So
coast.
I know you can't like spoil anything, but like wink or something if this is the third year for HHN American Horror Story.
I don't think we're doing it this year.
No?
No,
Wow,
I don't
man.
think so. I wish,
Yeah.
but I don't think so. Unless it's some big surprise, but I don't think so. I wish. We go every year anyways. We
yeah.
just go because we love it.
Yeah, yeah. So with characters like the ones that you got to do in Narnia, is that like, here's the toy box, like go just one play? I mean, you kind of have the idea of who's in Narnia with the novels, obviously, but how
Yeah.
was that experience?
Well, the toy box was K&B.
Yeah.
Howard Berger and his team designed a lot of it before we even got to New Zealand. And but yeah, we did so many makeup tests on Mr. Tumnus. I can't even tell you. Getting the nose right, the nostrils, can he breathe? And but I mean, it's just I like dealing more in the fantasy sci-fi aspect of things. So it was that was a dream job, just but it was working with Andrew Adamson and the illustrations in the C.S. Lewis books with inspiration and actually doing a kids film with creatures,
Yeah.
like brought me back to my childhood when I saw Dark Crystal and like anything Muppet oriented and all that kind of thing. And I was excited that I could finally do a movie that my mother would want to see.
Do you guys, a couple more questions. What was kind of like a two-parter? What has been the hardest creature or character that you have done? And then what's kind of like the dream character? So it could be like anything from like old school Universal, like your take on Frank and Dracula, all the way through just something that you haven't even been, it hasn't even been done yet, but you're like, this would be really cool to create for a film or a TV show.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's vast.
That's
The hardest makeup. I guess, gosh, there's been so many. If you're talking about like American Horror Story, probably something that wasn't even like a monster really is more like Sarah Paulson's age makeup in when
yeah.
she was supposed to be like a Barbara Walters kind of character where she had plastic surgery, but she was still very beautiful, but she was almost 80.
Yeah.
So aging somebody that's young, that's, 35 to be 80 is really challenging, and especially when on a TV schedule, to have something be really realistic like that is really hard. So that was probably my most challenging one. But then there's other things, getting some of the characters just right. Pepper was challenging. Mostly, I would think the season, one of the Freaks show season was probably the most challenging because we were in high humidity, we were on location, it was super gnarly and tons of prosthetics and deciding to change things from silicone to foam, like that, all that kind of stuff is, I think just dialing stuff in sometimes on big shows is really hard.
Yeah, I think the hardest one that I did, that was a complete failure because it was replaced with CG.
Uh-huh.
Was the infamous Azog from The Hobbit. And I get that question all the time, like, why was he CG? Because the final design was great,
Yeah.
And it could have been done practically, but it was one of those things that they initially casted a guy named Conan, who was as big as what you imagine his name implies.
Mhm.
He's like a wrestler in Thailand. I mean, he's like massive. So they thought putting this big makeup and big armor and all this on this big guy that can barely move because he's so steroided out. So he was just like, and of course he wasn't menacing enough. And so Peter Jackson basically said, we're creating the Darth Vader of this generation. And I'm like, oh yeah, no pressure on that one. And of course, what a workshop, you know, they have 35, you know, concept designers and throwing things around. And what did we do? We went through 3 actors, all the way from the big bulky weightlifting guy to the heroin addict string bean skinny guy. And it went from this thuggy looking guy, and we did, with the prosthetics, we did 5 different makeup tests with different hair, different colors, different everything. And then they went a total different direction and hired this scrawny, skinny dude. And then they made him really wrinkly, and he had all this hair punched all over him and just kind of like sickly looking. And of course, you know, if you're Darth Vader, like that's not, but
Yeah.
it was over designed, over sculpted, over everything. It was just almost like drowning in, you know, you have all these guys and nobody knows what this thing is. And we were filming at the time. This wasn't during prep. So like I was busy running a team and
Yeah.
4 or 5 units at once, and we're different parts of the country and all this stuff. So I was trying to get back to look at the sculptures and like have some input, and then finally just kind of, and we shot a bunch with each one of these different versions of Azog, and when one didn't work, they would rename it Bolg, son of Azog. And then that other one was, you know, evil stepbrother of Azog, you know, and all this stuff. And it was a complete, utter failure until the point where he became total CG, which is, he was this cool, like, scars and just all over him. But I think he animated him in like 2 months because he just doesn't look like he belongs in that world. So, and I'm thinking, if it was just all this, like so many people trying to, you know, and unfortunately it was a big failure. And I feel it was a failure in the movie, but man, I want to take that design and do it practically,
Yeah.
you know, because I did like the final design of it, but.
Just get it to the point where you're finally happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just insane. It was a struggle.
There's also some, I mean, as far as like also the second part of your question about doing like the ultimate thing you like. I mean, I've always been a werewolf fan, a Wolfman fan, you know,
Right
but
on.
it's been done so well so many times that I don't know how much of a original spin I could put on any of those classics, because I love them. I love the classics so much, and it's hard to, you know, to find something that can be really different about that. It's hard to do a female werewolf without having a beard on her. You know, it's
Yeah.
There's always something that you're thinking, oh, I could do that, but there's things that you get inspired by, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's a new thing we're doing. Sometimes it just takes a minute, and it takes like researching and pulling things and having ideas and having a great team. And
So would you have your werewolf be on all 4s, or would you have him be like long, chainy, and stunt?
That's a deep question.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like. I mean, a two-legged one is very menacing.
Yeah.
You know. I mean,
'Cause he can always go down to 4 if he wants
that's
to.
true. I think he should do everything. Superpowers.
Well, before we see if you guys have any questions, I think we have something that we want to do.
Yeah. Yes.
So today is actually Tammy's
Oh God.
birthday.
Yes, it is. It's your birthday.
So, for joining us on your birthday,
Oh, no.
it is your day. We have, gotta get forks in the other room, but we have a little cake for
Oh,
you.
thank you guys. Wow.
Yay. We're just gonna light the box on fire.
I'm old, but not that old.
There.
There you go. Well, thank
Let's
you
sing, you guys.
All
Ready?
right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
I'll go as bright red as
Happy birthday, dear Tammy. Happy birthday to you. Yay! Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
That's
I
so
didn't
have to do
cute.
that.
So let's open it up to some Q&A. Do any of you guys have questions for Eryn or Tami? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, who got to tell Conan he was fired?
What? What's that?
Who got to tell Conan he was fired?
Oh God, not me. Yeah, I was that was a happy day for me because he was yeah, he was this guy. I mean, he was I can't even, I'm having PTSD right now. He would have to eat every 2 hours and he would be in this makeup, like all glued in, teeth, everything, you know, and
Just like a pretzel stuck in the makeup?
no, but it was so he would literally blend like liquefied chicken and like all this, so, and he smoothied everything like a hamburger. He took it in a blender and then he would have this big like tube that he would suck while like doing the makeup. I mean,
As you're
I
playing
couldn't
stuff
eat
on
chicken
it?
soup for a year.
He's doing that as you're.
Yeah.
Wow.
How many people, like let's say there's a scene with all the dwarves.
Yes.
And you have to get them all ready at once.
Okay.
How many people are working on that?
Here's the morning. Here's a typical morning of The Hobbit. Arrived to work at 3:30 in the morning. I had a team on my prosthetic side, a team of 16 people. The hair department had a team of about 14 people, and that's very little crew for as much as we had to do. So what they would do is the stunt guys, the stunt doubles of all 13 dwarves would come in at 4 in the morning. We would get them ready, and then we'd send them off to set.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we did 26 dwarves every day, not 13,
Jeez.
plus all the other
And
actors.
that's only 2 people basically per person.
Yeah, we had a like, you know, we had scale doubles, so we had a team for scale doubles. Those were just pullover masks, so they weren't makeup artists. They were just kind of like, you know,
Like for distant shots.
yeah, or yeah, for walking shots for scale and stuff like that.
How far apart were your stations? Like, did you have walkie-talkies or were you like shouting? Like, were you hoarse at the end of the day? Because like, I mean, the quality management of being able to make sure everyone's doing the same
Yeah,
thing.
we had 6
How
makeup
much
trucks.
liberty they were taking?
Well, I had a walkie-talkie, and there's a walkie-talkie in each trailer, and I had a point person in each trailer.
They're not improvising too much in there, are they?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing?
But yeah, so you know, there was if there was issues or problems, I was always notified, and
Quality control sounds.
yeah, it was nuts. But I had a most amazing crew. Like we pulled from like a lot of my crew came from the Narnia crew from Australia, and I had a lot of people from England come down.
I know Peter likes to keep a lot of people from New Zealand back. So
Yeah.
that's why they-
Yeah. But it was nuts. But we would get the stunt doubles ready and send them off, and then the heroes would come in at 6, and then they would be on set at 8. So then while we had 2 crews working of that, we also had to prep during. So the pieces we were getting from Weta we were basically getting as we were going. So we had to prep for the next day during the shoot day because we weren't getting a backlog of prosthetics that we had to pre-paint, and all the eyebrows were hand punched. And so the detail is nuts. So we would have a buddy system, like you'd have a buddy, like Eryn would be my buddy. So okay, first half of the day you go and look after Thorn and Dwalin, and I'm going to go and prep my Thorn and Dwalin pieces. And then after lunch we would switch out, and I would look after her 2 dwarves while she prepped for the next day. And that was kind of how there was no downtime. It was, yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So much work.
But, you know, and then
You guys
we'd
have
get the
to go first,
prosthetics
or
on.
you and water and like coffee to keep you guys wired and going?
Coffee?
Good, yeah,
Or-
good go for, and like people that would go for the coffee. And
Yeah, we had a great AD
You guys just
staff.
have like a tap, like a
Yeah,
like
that-
IV and
yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
Well, plus, you guys have scenes with all the heroes and a bunch of dwarves, or elves, excuse me.
The elves, yeah.
So you're.
Yeah,
gotta
we-
need tons of-
Thank you.
That's
That's
so
awesome.
cute.
Thank you so much.
But that, the results, amazing.
Yeah,
It was
and-
so good.
yeah, we would. They were incredibly long days. I mean, I actually one day clocked in 26 hours, which is unheard of. Usually that long, but we would have 4 to 5 hour turnarounds. Because the days, because then like when we had like Gandalf's and Bilbo and all their stunt doubles, and then we'd have 5 units running, so we had to have doubles for those units as well, just picture doubles and yeah. And when you're in New Zealand, I employed every single makeup artist I possibly could, and that even wasn't enough, but they wouldn't pay for any more. So I lucked out towards the end. They wanted to do a whole nother unit of just orcs in this battle scene in the Battle of the Five Armies, and so I got to hire. They let me hire 20 new artists from anywhere in the world I wanted. So I brought in Americans. I got the guys from DDT, Dave and Muncie that did Pan's Labyrinth, and I got basically the dream team from all over the world, and the couple of Americans that would come down because it was not a non-union show, but they just wanted the experience.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then we shot for 2 days with these big giant orcs, and then they realized, oh, we actually need to choreograph this. So they sent them all home. And after organizing and doing all that, they sent all these artists home, and I'm like, I got to keep some of them because my crew is dying. I had 40 artists come through my door throughout the shoot of The Hobbit. 40, and I had a crew of 16. So that tells you the turnover of people were getting sick or tired or just over it, and it was insane. But I actually talked them into letting me keep like 6 of those 20 for the rest of the show, which helped so much. So.
You gotta get fresh people.
Oh yeah, and they're excited. We were all burnt out.
So when you plan that, when they're planning the production and they're setting out schedules and whatnot, don't they ask you how many people are you gonna need?
Oh
Or do
yeah,
they say,
I said
"This is-
25.
This is your budget, do your best."
They never gave me a budget because Peter Jackson has a bottomless pit in his pocketbook. So the budget, but here's a funny thing. I was ordering every 3 months $25,000 worth of glue, this Telesis that we would use. I would import every 3 months $25,000. So my glue budget was out of this world. So some guy in the office decided to research cheaper glues. And I went, and this is like somebody that doesn't know what we do. And they're like, well, what's this MA 100? And I'm like, no, because it's also about the skin and the beat up of the skin for 2 years.
Right.
Like you can't use Prozade every day. It's too rough on the skin. The removal is just brutal after all that time. And Telesis actually sticks very well and then comes off very easily. And I'm like, look, you're messing with people's real skin, and for a 2-year project, and they're there every day, 6 days a week most of the time, because we had a couple units running Monday to Friday, and then another unit running Tuesday to Saturday. So we were all working Saturdays.
Oh my
as well.
God.
And you also have to consider that like there are actors that even with the really like soft on your skin stuff, like they'll complain so much, and which like I mean it's pretty understandable because they're troopers to have to sit in that makeup chair for as many hours as they do.
Yeah.
But I mean like imagine then those kinds of actors having to be put on like you said Presley.
Yeah,
That's
like
it,
you had to be,
it's a nightmare.
and you had to know like what they were doing that day and how hot it was and the temperature and everything came into like how
So much pressure.
bulletproof do you make this, because you don't want to spend 2 hours removing it at the end of the day either. So.
I just hear Tweet's voice from South Park. That's so much pressure.
Does anybody else have a question?
Yes.
For both of you guys, when you first started out, what was the project that you were working on when you finally to yourself really just felt like you made it? Like not even just like, getting the accolades or anything, but into yourself, you know what I mean? There's always that self-reward when you finally just go, you know what, I finally did this. Like, I broke through and I'm really happy with where I am. What project were you guys working on when you had that moment?
Or have you?
I don't know. I think there's always something that you're looking to do. You know, I think maybe it could have been a little bit of like, I'd always wanted to do a World War II film, and I got to do 2 of them back to back, and it was an incredible experience, and it was working for Clint Eastwood, and I really enjoyed it, and it was the ultimate kind of like big budget, all over the world, you know, fun, and even though it was a very serious subject matter, we were all having a great time, and I think that was one of those films where you go, oh, this is really it. Or when you walk on set and see these giant sets for the first time, you think, oh my God, this is amazing. And that happened much earlier when you walk onto something and you just can't believe that it's, that you're, I mean, at that point it was like, catering? Catering? Like, this is crazy. I'm getting paid and food? Like, this is nuts. And that was like 1990. So I think it kind of like evolves all the time, like where you think, oh, this is really something that I want to do, and then you get to a job that it's like a tier 1 small film where it's really creative and full of characters that you're really enjoying doing, and then you think, I really like this. Like, I think everything has a different level of satisfaction to it, and then sometimes I think, oh, I haven't done what I've wanted to do yet. So, yeah.
I have a question that's essentially for both of you, but it also kind of harkens back to something you said. You said that you really like sci-fi and everything. And I'm not 100% knowledgeable of your work history, so have you worked on anything Star Trek or Star Wars, or do you want to? Is that something that you want to do since that's sci-fi? Is that a dream for you?
But does that go back to what she was saying too? Like,
and also, basically, the reason why I go for both of you is because, like, how do you generally get your jobs? Do you audition for them kind of in a similar way that actors audition for their roles, or do you just get called up? Do you go to? I'd like to know how that works. Like, for instance, would you be able to audition for the supposed Tarantino owned Star Trek?
Yeah. Well, to answer your first question, I'm currently working on The Orville, which is Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane's, yeah.
Yeah, which is like his take on Star Trek.
Yeah, a lot of people say that's way better than Discovery, that that's like the Star Trek we
I love James McKinnon.
I do too.
What's that?
No. A mutual friend of ours is a department head on the Star Trek Discovery. Yep.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't have an opinion on it.
No, you know what? I had that moment, what you're talking about, on that show. Because as a kid loving sci-fi and Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars, of course. And the funny thing is, I never liked Star Trek. So that was like the only, like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Star Trek. But I liked all these other things. I drew spaceships. I mean, do you remember that television show, Secret City, where it's a guy in a spacesuit and teaches you how to draw? Yeah. My favorite show of all time. But I walked on just a few weeks ago when I first started prep for the second season, and I walked onto the Orville. I was on my own, and I literally sat there and went, oh my God, I dreamt about this as a kid. I dreamt about being on spaceships and aliens, and I love Family Guy. I've been an avid watcher of Family, like Seth MacFarlane's one of my favorite everythings, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, like, I got goosebumps just right now, because I'm department heading a show full of aliens, all about space, with one of my favorite people, like, that has made me laugh over so many years. Like, that when I come home from a stressful day at work, the first thing I do is I find Family Guy on wherever it's always on, and I still do it. It's crazy, but I think, yeah. So that's the Orville for me. Is I actually fulfilled a childhood dream being on a space show.
It's your own personal awestruck moment.
Yeah, it was. It was literally, and I was standing on the bridge all by myself.
Has Seth ever done the thing where he does all the voices? Like, he has a conversation of all the Family Guy voices for you?
Seth doesn't like to do that, but on Fridays after 5, if he's had some Jack in his Coke, he occasionally, because he directs a lot, he occasionally, you'll hear Stewie, occasionally.
Being sassy or something.
Yeah, but Brian, I always, when I'm not looking at him, it's always Brian, because that's his normal voice. So I'm being directed by a dog in my head. But
There's never a take where he's like, "That's freaking sweet."
he does Ted a lot.
Oh, he does Ted?
He does
Okay.
Ted a lot. But yeah, he'll do Peter every now and again.
Uh-huh.
But it's not like he sits there and.
Has them talk to each other. and
No.
stuff, yeah.
But
Yeah.
but he is exciting and fun, and for a man as talented. I mean, the guy sings, he composes, he's a heck of a musician. He does
Yeah.
voices. He can imitate anybody on the crew.
Jeez.
He can imitate me. It's shut up. Yeah,
Have
you know.
ever been to like a live performance of his music? 'Cause I know he came
Yeah.
out with that solo album.
Yeah.
Pretty recent.
Yeah, he sings at Vibrato, which is this jazz club in LA, up on Mulholland Drive, on Mondays. Like
Is it always like super?
it's like Frank Sinatra.
Super full, probably always
Yeah.
really busy.
Yeah, it's always sold out.
You had a question?
Do you guys have any funny stories of makeup emergencies to where we would shoot a scene in 10 minutes and their eyebrows falling off, or any stories like that?
I think it's always an emergency.
Yeah, I'm like, when is it not
I
there?
know.
Hurry up!
It's always, there's always something, you know, you think you've got something locked down, and then even with beauty makeups, you get somebody just locked in, they're, I'm just gonna go change clothes, and all of a sudden they come back and they're like, my eyelashes all fell off, and then they're taking them to set, or a mustache or a beard, or there's always something. I mean, there's not even, I can't even think of like really one specific thing, unless it's something, you know, where all of a sudden, like, you know, you think the makeup is on there and you've done a touch up and it's locked on, and then all of a sudden it's falling off because it's too, they've exerted themselves too much, or
Right.
they've had some kind of, you know, something to eat that's too spicy, or they had a drink the night before and it's kind of like coming out of their skin or whatever, and then you think it's on there, and then you're having to go in and like push it down all the time. Or I had I did a ball cap on Will Ferrell for this movie called Drowning Mona. It was a little independent film, and he played this mortuary guy who was bald with this really deep comb over. It was like 3 hairs that went across the top of his head, and it was Los Angeles, you know, in July, and he was so sweet and lovely, but he kind of leaned forward in the scene like this, and this like gasket blue and white glue came just spraying out of his head, like on camera. It was just like, oh, well, I'm gonna go in there and try and oh, luckily it was glue, so it just kind of stuck back down, put some makeup on it. But like those kind of things where you just like can't even believe it. Or like on American Horror Story, it was season 2, we had Mark, God, what's Mark's last name? Anyways, he was playing the Nazi hunter. And Jessica Lange's character comes in and says, oh no, he's got this big piece of glass stuck in his neck, and she's gonna take the glass out, and then it's this like arterial spray. So the first time we do it, like no blood's coming out, and we're like, oh my God, and we usually are good at like the first time, like getting blood stuff on the first time, and then they move on. So we're in there, and everybody's, there's 5 people in there, like, what's going on? And oh, it was this bladder that nobody had really, like, it was just not working correctly, and it was building up underneath down here in his shirt. So they go in, do a little, we need 5 minutes, emergency, reconnect and everything. And they decide we're going to pump up the PSI on the things, and they blow it, and it goes, she pulls the thing out, and it sprayed this high off the ground, like a geyser, and it basically left like a shadow of Jessica Lange on the wall. Like she was just covered in blood, and it was like, and everyone's like, yeah. My team is like, yeah, and I'm like, everyone was like, they didn't use it in the show. And then that's when my husband created this new way to do bladders out of opsite, which is a little more,
awesome.
just a little, it's out of surgical tape, and it's just a little bit more reassurance than it was made out of a
I did
latex
that on the
blend.
Shallows.
Oh, you did?
I went on YouTube and I watched it, and for the shark bite on Blake. On
Oh,
the
cool.
Shallows.
And they're waterproof, which is cool. But it was like out of necessity, because something was, I mean, it was so crazy how high the blood came out of his neck. And then he was just, it was all down his clothes, and we had to, disconnect him, take him to the bathroom. It was crazy. But that was like the biggest, probably the biggest crazy blood accident. But and then something great came out of it too. That was in like 2011 or 2012 that he created these cool bladders. But yeah, it was a nightmare.
We just got the news from Ryan that the show, or the season rather, that we thought we were going to have to wait a little longer for is happening with the Coven Murder House crossover.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't even know that much about it. We start shooting next week.
Oh, well, damn. That takes my...
She's still waiting for a script.
I know. It's really like it's
That takes
crazy.
my give us a preview request away. Like,
Oh, I wish I could. It's I know it's going to be it's really cool, and there's going to be some really great fan favorites. So that'll be awesome. And I'm always surprised, even when we're shooting. We usually get stuff. Sometimes we get scripts like 2 days before, a day before. Sometimes we go to work and we don't have anything to shoot, and they go, "Here's some lines. We'll shoot that scene." Like it just depends on how it evolves with Ryan's brain. It evolves as we kind of go, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know what we're going to do with this, and it turns into something else. They kind of have like a great outline of what they're going to do,
yeah.
and then sometimes things just become better, I guess, is how, something that he decides to take the season. But
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to really enjoy it this year.
Well, I know people are clamoring for it. That
know.
crossover between the two.
I know. Oh my God.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, since you have the skill set, have you pulled off any really fantastic pranks on friends and family or other cast members?
I mean, that's kind of like an underlying theme pretty much all
Right.
the time, right?
Give them an example.
Yeah.
Are they always finding fingers in their fridge and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, I'm not sure. It's trying to think of like
Well, it's
pranks that we.
I don't prank my family. Well, they're in Illinois, so it's hard.
I kinda used to, I think.
We prank each other, like, okay, like, we, like, all right, so one time I supposedly might have filled a friend's toolbox with tools in it full of alginate.
Oh my God! Surprise! It's like a Christmas present.
And like, is he started something with me, so I just kind of, after
Oh my
work,
God, damn it.
I went into his toolbox where all the sculpting tools are. Allegedly, nobody's proven anything, and made him put some alginate, mixed up some alginate, and locked it all up. So he had to pick all of the alginate off of his tool.
Oh my God, that's
Dang.
hilarious.
I might have allegedly took apart somebody's airbrushes and superglued all the parts to the table.
That's way better than anything I've done. That's great.
I might have taken some streaks and tips, which washes off, and graffitied some guy's car
That's
Probably
good.
scared
with
the hell out of that guy.
profanities. And he drove around for 3 days until I felt so bad that I took a power washer out into the parking lot and washed it off for him. And he didn't even, I'm like,
Oh my God.
yeah, I might have done those things, those
That's
types
funny.
of pranks, but not like, here's a dead body in the trunk of your car, which is good. We
Yeah,
should do
that's a
that.
good one. That's a good one. Oh my gosh.
I have time for one more question.
Yeah, when you're working on something like the shallows and the wound is constantly getting wet, are you always just putting it back on? I mean, even though it's waterproofing, the solidity, and then when the blood comes out, it's gotta look good.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard is that to consistency, right?
Well, we got. Oh, have you seen The Shallows? How? Yeah.
With Blake.
Yeah. So like the wound, it was a silicone wound, and it was and yeah, we put it on her, but she like rips off her wetsuit and puts it on her as a compression sock to stop the bleeding. So the biggest challenge on that show was to keep any makeup on. Like, so when that leg started going gangrene, so I didn't have to worry about the prosthetic underneath because it was covered by the rash guard. But she bruised and her foot got gangrene, and the hardest thing was keeping the color on because the rock she was stranded on was scraping all the color off. So I did everything in tattoos. I did bruises, all the bruising and all that, in tattoos, and then just had tons of grease makeup because I found Illustrator, the alcohol-based colors, just came right off in the water after a while. But the grease, so I've gone back to old school lately because of that show, using more grease, my RMGs, because they hold way better than a lot of new stuff that's out there now. But yeah, it's like, you know, she's on the rock. It's the scene where she's stitching it up with her jewelry, using her jewelry. And I used the Mekash special bladder I made in 20 minutes in the trailer because it wasn't supposed to be shot that day. And they're like, can you make it bleed? And I'm like, give me 30 minutes. And anyway, came back and reapplied this wound with this bladder, and it worked a charm and I'm sitting next to her with a syringe of blood. Just every time she pushes it together, and it comes out. And then she uses the water to wash it away. And the director's like, can you make the blood stay on the leg? I'm like, she's in water. Like, it would wash away. Like, I don't understand, like, whatever.
Yeah.
But then I had to come up with, she's swimming away and they wanted the blood to follow like she's still bleeding and it's coming out from under the rash guard. And I was in the water with her with a bucket of blood, like really watered down blood with a sponge. And I would literally take the rash guard, shove it down into there full of blood, and I would swim away, and I'm like, okay, shoot. And then she would be swimming away, and you'd see a little bit of the blood come out from underneath the rash guard enough. I think they digitally enhanced it because they weren't getting enough blood, and it was like washing away immediately. So that's another aspect where digital kind of helped with that. But you would never know it. It looked really good. So.
Well, guys, we are out of time, but let's give it up for Eryn and Tami.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you want to see them, they'll be up at the front at their table. If you
Who
want
wants cake?
Yeah, we'll cut some cake up.
Cut some cake.
And we have, I have my American Horse Story cult stickers if you guys want one. Yay!